Come gather round, people, wherever you are, and look back the waters around you have roared, and accepted that soon you will be drenched to the bone. If your time is worth saving, you better start swimming, it'll sink like stone. Times they are changing. So co-writers, co-critics, and prophesize with your pen, and keep your eyes wide, the chairs won't come again, and don't speak too soon for the wheels still in spin. Don't tell me who that it's leaving. For the winds are right now, will be later again. For the times they are changing. So co-senators, congressmen, police in the car. Don't stand in the doorway, don't lock up the heart. For he who gets hurt will be he who has starved. There's a battle outside and it's raging. It will soon shake your walls, rattle your walls. For the times they are changing. The line is drawn, and the curse it is cast. You slow on now, will later be fast as the present now. It will later be past. The order is rapidly fading, so the first one now will later be last. For the times they are changing. Times they are changing. Times they are changing.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Jennifer Strange, and I'm emceeing this evening. Like Sarah and Michelle, I'm a Centenary alumna, and we all share some connections to the communication program and in sort of varying degrees to the Christian Leadership Center. And I mention those things mostly because we think there might be some comm students or some CLC students, and we reckon that there are some folks from the Beliefs and Values group here. Oh, what? Okay, all right, good. So special welcome to you people. The plan, see my notes say that the plan is that Sarah's going to sing for us, but Sarah has already sung for us, but she's going to sing again. And then Michelle's going to read from her recent book, and then we're going to share some conversation to end the evening. So I'm going to introduce them as they come up, but first we want to say some thanks to some folks. Thank you to Professor Jessica Hawkins of the Communication Program and to Dr. Chris Giacchetti of the Philosophy Department and the Beliefs and Values Group for supporting this. Thanks to Sean Fitzgibbons, Director of the Meadows Museum of Art, for opening this space to us. We're excited to be here. Who else? Thanks to Candace in marketing, and Sage in alumni, and Lindy Broderick, Reverend Lindy, I'm not saying her name right, Reverend Lindy Broderick of the CLC for all that they've done to make this happen. And thanks to Beth Duet, who brought coffee. I mean, she mothered this person here, but she also brought the refreshments, and she works as the director of the professional services here at Centenary. So we're thanks to all those people and whoever else I probably should have thanked. So the show. We're going to hear from Sarah Duet first. Sarah majored in new media and participated in the CLC throughout her years here at Centenary. Also, while a student here, she traveled with friends to Haiti and helped develop some partnerships with children's homes there. With some of those same friends, she founded a young adult community called the Yellow House, I should probably say that more professionally, Yellow House, that practiced monastic principles and served the local Highland community for 5 years. You can sample her original music at her website, sarahduet.com, including her most recent single, River Acoustic, whose proceeds support resistance efforts at Standing Rock. She's also a writer, a teacher, a multimedia artist, and she currently works as the creative director of worship and young adults at Knoll Memorial United Methodist Church here in Shreveport. So, Sarah, and she's going to sing for us.
Thank you. Jennifer, J, or Strange. We don't really know what to call her now that we're friends and not professor students, but we're just trying some things out, so you may hear different names used tonight in reference. I'm going to start with a song called Allow. This is one of the newer ones for me. I don't think you're really supposed to have favorite pieces of art as an artist. They're supposed to be like children and you're not supposed to pick a favorite, but whatever. This one's my favorite right now. And it doesn't have to be your favorite, no pressure. But this is a song about, in brief, about how a lot of times the most important things that happen in our lives to us or in our stories are not necessarily the things that we make happen, but the things that we allow to happen in our lives. The vulnerability it takes to allow or let someone in to have a real, authentic or intimate relationship, and those points that we come up against our human limitations inevitably, and have to allow ourselves to rest or to heal. In those times when we come to an end and have to allow something to be laid to rest, and to learn to find a beginning in that ending. So mind the way you're feeling, find the beginning in it, and let it turn. Let it turn. This is another fairly recent one. I'm still figuring this one out a little bit. You know, sometimes you start the song, you know exactly what you want to write about, and you work to that end, and sometimes one just kind of comes at you and you figure it out as you go. So I've been figuring this one out for, I don't know, about a year now maybe. But it's inspired by a poem by the poet Rumi that says something like, come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, come again, even if you've broken your vow 1,000 times, come again. So that was the starting point for this song. This is called Lover of Leaving. Stay which guitars to have and which tunings to play in. We're going to talk process some tonight, so I'll let you in on the backside of all this a little bit. I write in a lot of different tunings, which means that the strings are set to different notes, which is fun creatively and then hard to pull off live. But it's kind of, Joni Mitchell's talked about it before in terms of writing on a keyboard, and if you would take all the keys and switch where they were located and then try to write, that's kind of what it would be like. So it makes new things happen, but you get all jumbled up at first. But this next song actually quotes a poem by Jennifer, who will read that, I think, after I sing it. So this is just, as most of my songs tend to be, a picture of what it can be like to be in relationships unsuccessfully, and maybe lonely but longing for a successful one. So this is Mercy Make Acquaintance. You don't have to be afraid of me. You can look me in the eye. Maybe if you did, then this would quicker pass us by. I know it's nothing new. Time and time again. time.
So that was Sarah Duet. As she mentioned, since she was singing her song that borrows lines from a poem of mine, we figured I might read it as well. It also has some connections to what Michelle's going to read because it features a mouse. See, those people have read her book. They're related. But the one in my poem is deceased, whereas the one she's going to read about was unfortunately still alive. Well, anyway, we don't, I guess, know for sure. My poem's called On the Death of a Mouse. A mouse is made that small for speed, not smarts, so when one tries to cross a busy road, it meets, perhaps, a car. It's a pleasant poem, you see. Anyway. Not quite dead then, spasming up from asphalt like a bag caught sideways in the wind, a mouse requires some mercy, some swift end. And I might think how easy, how abrupt that sentence seems. This is my right on earth, and duty too. For beauty flees this place like coastal rains, completely fast. It takes a year or two to see the vapors pass, or else a moment. We too, like some mouse, do writhe and spasm all our days until at last we come to what we've earned, that death's so late for all we've run across, and mercy may make much of me, as only mercy can. Those last lines, I was excited to find that Sarah would use in her her song. So, we've had music and a mouse and some mercy, and now we will have Michelle. See what I did there? Thanks. Michelle Junot majored in professional writing as well as dance here at Centenary and then headed to the University of Baltimore where she earned the Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing and Publishing Arts. She did the writing, designing, and publishing of her first book, the purple one, and The Floor Was Always Lava. Then she slacked off and only did the writing part of her more recent book, Notes from My Phone, asterisk. Am I supposed to ask? That's, you know, that's not, sorry. Notes from My Phone, published by Mason Jar Press. You can buy your very own copy here, well, copies of both here, or via her website, michellejunot.com. Michelle has also published essays in several magazines and currently teaches graphic design and works as the Director of Alumni Relations and the Assistant Director of Communications at the University of Baltimore School of Law. To read her titles alone requires swiping up on my phone. It's just so long. It's very long. So, here's Michelle.
Thank you. Said that we don't really know what to call you. It's true. Today I introduced Jennifer as Jennifer, and that's the first time I've ever called you Jennifer. And now I've said it 4 times. Really working on it. So I was presenting at a conference this weekend. I was one of the keynotes, and I was with really impressive people right next to me. So like people who are much further in their career, who were giving this advice to all of these writers, and it was really important advice that I was kind of writing down. And then I get up there and I was like, so listen, I'm disgusting. And it's going to be amplified in the mic, and I'm sorry, and I'm going to lean because my equilibrium's off. And I thought that was a fine way of saying I've been sick. And it wasn't. People were horrified. And everyone was like, oh no, what is she going to read? This is going to be really awkward. So, I have been sick. And I am sorry that that is going to be amplified into the mic, but it is what it is. So I thought it might be fun, because I'm still warming up my voice at this point in the microphone, and just the way that the books were written. I haven't read from And the Floor Was Always Lava in quite some time. But these were written at the same time, this one on purpose, this one by accident. if you're interested in how you might write a book by accident, that's an excellent Q&A question. So just to kind of give you the framing of what was happening in my life, I'm just going to read a really, really small section from And the Floor Was Always Lava, and then I'll dive into my notes. So this is like camouflage. Can you guys hear me in the back? Are we good? Okay. If you can't, if you just like make weird movements, I'll interpret it. Okay. Like camouflage. I used to pull our small lavender step stool from its place in the cabinet beneath the sink, climb onto it quietly, and lean over the counter to stare at my reflection in the mirror. I'd trace the shape of each of my eyes with my finger pressed to the glass, leaving behind 2 smudges. One eye was significantly smaller than the other. Was that okay? And their color was different than other people's eyes. They were hazel, but with specks of brown and gold dotted with green, like camouflage, like my mother's. I wondered what I would look like as a grown-up. Would I look the same, just bigger? Would my freckles space evenly over my bigger face? Or would I get more to fill in the gaps? Would I be beautiful? I desperately wanted to know what I would look like, who I would be, but I didn't want to grow up to find out either. Actually, I hated that idea. Growing up meant being brave, even without a nightlight. It meant living in a big house without mom or dad tucking me in. Growing up meant getting old and dying like my grandfather. All of that was scary, but my fear went even deeper than those understandable things. My aunt or uncle or grandma would say, "You're getting so big, and look how grown up you are." And I'd cry. My mother always assured them it wasn't their fault. I was going through a phase. How could they know? Then she'd tell me to hush and ask what all the crying was about. I didn't have the vocabulary to say that I hated the way time moved slowly on some days, but so quickly on others. My words couldn't say that I didn't like the way life moved forward with or without our consent. I couldn't explain that I couldn't picture my own face at my mother's age. Instead, I'd say, "I don't want to grow up," through dramatic, shallow breaths. She hugged me then and say, "You're being silly. Everyone grows up." Okay, so I think you'll notice the same girl, just a little more unedited. Okay. So I try not to, I'm not very good at giving explanations, so I try not to do it too much. You saw that a minute ago. But a couple of these I will give a little bit of explanation, otherwise I'm just going to run through. So these are the notes from my phone. 9:37 a.m. We often picture an outcome and work backwards from that vision. But creativity isn't about working forward. Creativity is about working forward, not necessarily having a concept of where you're going. (11:58 p.m.) What I really want to know is how I end up. What's the end of the story? But here's the thing, maybe I don't actually want to know. Maybe none of us really want to know. Because if I'd known I'd fall in love with a man or 2 or 3 who didn't or couldn't or thought he shouldn't love me back, I might have never tried at all. And then where would I be? Growing up is critical. Knowing how it will end should be avoided. Because hope is what we run on, and without hope, we'd all be lost. Okay, this is the one that I explained. So I said I had a reading in April. So this book was published last December. A large portion of it is the both legitimately dramatic and the melodramatic pieces of a breakup. Has anyone ever gone through a breakup before? It can be an uncomfortable process. So the book chronicles a lot of that in a really embarrassing way in some cases. And then while I was promoting the book, I went through a breakup. This is a humbling experience that I don't recommend, because here's what happens. You give the book to a few friends, then you start going through this breakup, and then you're like crying about your breakup, and they're like, "Oh, I have a book for you. See what I did there?" And you're like, "That's precious. Listen, this is my real life." So it's a little humbling. So I don't read a whole lot of the breakup ones, So I'm going to do this one, and it's because it fills me with a little self-loathing. I also like to frame it as I'm fine. Everything's okay. Time has passed. It's okay. All right. 2:57 a.m. Lord, I'm awake, I'm tired, and I'm awake again. I'm exhausted from insomnia at night, and I'm never fully awake during the day. I want to take comfort in you, rest in the fact that you have a plan for me, rest in your grace and deep love for me, rest in the fact that those feelings and desires and misunderstood heartache will go away soon. But how will it go away if I don't let it go? I feel myself clinging to it, fists wrapped tight around something I thought you'd given me to protect, to guard and trust. What's the point of trusting or working at that, at really breaking down walls, if it's now all crashed down around my feet? What lesson about love should I draw from that? How do I understand you in that shattered place? Am I broken only to know I need you? Is that what this is about? I want to understand. I want to follow and trust and love you in all things. I want this rejection to be removed from my memory. I want the pain to stop rising up in my throat when I try to breathe. The days are fine. I'm busy with tasks, and my heart forgets that it is broken. My heart forgets that it is not wanted by the one I want. Even saying it now, I see the problem. You cannot be with someone who doesn't want you. And so then there's this battle between my head and my heart, knowing the truth, and not feeling the warm comfort of either. I'm living in this disconnected place where my head wants to praise you for all the good you've done, believing and trusting in the promise you've honored time and time again, first with the Israelites and so often in my own life, but I am not there. My journals show prayer after broken prayer, many without much thought of you at all. They show me what I couldn't see when I wrote them. Hope was around the corner. There would come a time when I wouldn't always feel that way. My head has seen what you do with time, but my heart's memory is short. So here I am, awake, exhausted. I'm fighting everything, including sleep, because the quiet reminds me of all that isn't. My body feels crumpled by the weight of exhaustion and melodramatic tears that come from not sleeping for months, and want and a deep need to understand. Lord, I need your real physical embrace. I need your arms, your soothing voice. I need you in my humanness. My head and my heart are battling it out, and they're too busy with one another to lull me to sleep. I'll breathe. Lord, I'll concentrate on that piece because it's the only thing I feel sure I know how to do. Forgive my weakness, but can you do the rest? I'll just breathe and you do all the rest, just for tonight, so I can sleep. Oh, thanks. Yeah. She's been there. They know. All right. Okay. 5:03 a.m. I just woke up with a mouse on me, but I'm okay. No, I'm not okay. It was on me. I was sleeping on my back on the couch because the bedroom didn't feel safe. I woke up to the pitter-patter of feet across the sheet and freaked out and started screaming immediately. In my effort to swipe him off of me, I tangled us both up in the sheet, binding my arms. I threw myself off of the couch, trying to crawl my way out. I don't know what happened to the mouse at that point. I screamed for at least 3 minutes straight, like someone was attacking me. It concerns me slightly that none of my neighbors knocked on the door or called the police. This is a reminder that I write nonfiction, and that really happened. 11:25 a.m. I saw him again. He ran out of my closet. I cleaned more and put steel wool in the hole. I got peppermint oil, which is supposed to hurt their little noses, and I plugged in the sonar repellent devices in most of the outlets. They say you only need one per room, but I don't trust it. No signs of him this morning. 8:38 p.m. I have been cleaning around the clock. If I can get everything spotless, I don't think the mouse will want to stay here anymore. He will simply take his little mouse-sized suitcase and move on out. Here's what I'm struggling with, though. Is it better for me to see him move out, say in a trap, or for me just to never see him again and assume he's found new digs, but always wonder if he's still here? I don't like hearing him at night, so I've been sleeping with Pandora on to cover any sounds of his little feet or nibbles or jeering. Also, I've kept the lights on in my bedroom, dimmed, but with every corner illuminated just in case. This is helpful, except now that I can't hear him, I'm afraid that I'm going to wake up and he'll be snuggled up to me, his little mouse body cradling the opposite side of the body pillow. But I can't lie there in the dark silence, half asleep, waiting for his pitter-patter either. It always comes back to this: is it better to know or to not know? I am not one for confrontation. I do not like speaking about hard things or the lump that forms in my throat when tears find my eyes. I don't like the way that men's faces change when my eyes tear, effectively steering the conversation to something less than honest, if only to stop the crying. I wonder now if the mouse is a guy mouse or a girl mouse. The power just went out. How is this my life? Now what? I'm in the dark with a mouse who may be agitated by the smell of peppermint. I filled the apartment with candlelight. It's actually quite nice. But what if the mouse runs across one of the candles and knocks it down and starts a fire? That's something he would do. I'm using my battery-dying phone to play music just to let the mouse know I'm still awake even though the lights are off. But now I feel uncomfortable because there's candlelight and I'm playing music, and this is starting to feel like a weird romantic evening with the mouse. But maybe he's uncomfortable too and he'll just leave. "12:53 p.m. A plane fell out of the sky, and still the world went on. A day later, my hometown was on lockdown for a bomb threat and a suspicious device in the park where I learned to run. The same small town that only just mourned the kidnapping and death of a pretty blonde girl who was just riding her bike. And a plane fell out of the sky. When there's a school shooting, and there always is, I turn off the news. I don't want to hear about it anymore. I don't want to picture the children I don't have or my nephew's face. I don't want to empathize with the parents who live those nightmares, because the small glimpse I have from their tear-stained faces is enough to crush me completely. We are all numb, and more we are strangers in a way that we cannot come back from. And there was a plane that fell from the sky and another one that just disappeared. It disappeared with questions and loved ones, and we buried those people with conspiracy theories and opinions and Facebook statuses that ultimately did nothing for anybody. When I look at the photos, it's not the wreckage that ruins me. When I look at those pictures, I see an abstract installation at an overpriced museum. I can't make those images link back to my many trips seated on the blue Delta fabric with strangers and children behind me. The wreckage does not move me. It's the people left behind that cripples. It's the woman who's covering her face with her hands. This is her life. She's a real person, and this is her life right now. And watching her grief on the TV in my apartment alone on the other side of the world makes me lonely. Maybe the answer is not to shut her out, not really, but let her and her story take hold of my heart beyond my morning cup of coffee. In a world without faith, I find myself apologizing for it or tiptoeing around it, confessing silently to God that I do not know how to do better. There's another image of buses carrying relatives of the dead to and from wherever they're going. A holding area? Do they speak to one another? Do they start crying all over again, but this time together? I'm inconsolable when I cry, when I really cry. Is anyone able to console them? I remember the sharp-dressed funeral director closing the casket at my grandmother's funeral. I thought this part came at the end of Mass. I thought there was more time, another hour to work through a lifetime of questions. I couldn't catch my breath, surprised by my sudden grief and unwillingness to live in a world without her voice. There's another picture of all the luggage from the plane. Ordinary luggage, piled on top of one another with no one to retrieve it. It reminds me of the shoes piled in a room at the Holocaust Museum. It's all very ghostly, haunting. We work our whole lives for things that we cannot take with us when we go. I'm staring again at the photo woman, covering her face with her hands, wishing I could hug her and tell her she doesn't have to hide her hurt. How are we doing? We're okay? All right. Normally I only do a short one and then I close it out, but my nephew's here and I promised that I would read this one. Not that he'll remember it, but maybe. He's in that like weird memory making stage. So this might be a good one that like 10 years from now, he's like, oh, my aunt did this thing. That was really cool. He's got another aunt, so I'm really trying to. It's really, really important to me. Okay, 8:10 p.m. My nephew loves music. He loves bad music. He loves music, sorry, Ashley. He loves music that comes from my sister's lovely but out of tune mouth. He loves French music that I sing to him, even though I got a D in my college français class. He loves when we hum if he's crying. He loves Pandora. He loves the songs even when we change the words, as long as we keep a steady beat. It calms him and makes him smile. It lets him know that we're still here with him, that we hear him. Singing to him, watching him change from crying for any number of reasons, to a quiet whimper, to a smile, to a full-out giggle sometimes as he locks your eyes and you sing to him, it brings tears to the backs of my eyes. It moves something in the core of me that I can't quite explain, and I don't think it's just because his blood and my blood share similar properties. His mother, my sister, has explained to me that while all crying babies upset her, there's something desperate about her own child's cry. There's something that will make her move mountains to figure out how to stop his crying. When he cries, my heart doesn't break on that same line. Mostly, noise upsets me. Except, funnily enough, music. Blaring music is the only thing that pushes down the lump in my throat sometimes. There's a movement to it. There's an involuntary heart rhythm that it creates when I feel stuck in an emotion or painful experience. Whether I like it or not, something has to stir within me if I'm moving to music. I wonder if the same thing is happening to my nephew, if we share that bond somehow. He will not have memories of our last 10 days together, so I'm trying to remember everything for the both of us. Okay. If there is a weirdest one, this is it. Buckle in. 12:13 a.m. For me, dreaming has become a platform to experience impossible realities over and over, replaying the outcomes with different variables. The outcome never changes from real life. The dead ones are still dead, the mistakes still mistakes. But the we is always a little different. I was just in a dream, replaying something from my early childhood, something I'm not even sure ever happened, a restaurant scene with my mother right before I was born. I was there in theory, I suppose, and so I was able to be there in dream, but the chronology kept skipping like it does in dreams, and now I wasn't watching my pregnant mother, but a pregnant me at the table, talking about how I was feeling. And my body in the dream knows the outcome or the impossibility of it. My body has never known pregnancy, and so the dream isn't going to end right. I know this in the dream, so I start to look around. Because this is my other trick. I look for the unfamiliar parts or the slightly off parts. I let the people around me keep talking. I only have a moment before they stop and notice me not playing along. And that's when I felt it. I could feel his eyes on me. One of these things isn't like the other. One of these things doesn't belong. I saw him hiding behind his menu. I smirked, now in on the secret, and walked right up to him. The grandfather I did not get the chance to know. I've now known him more in my dreams than I ever did in life. This silly peekaboo game, the one from when I was 3, the only real, although maybe not real, memory I have of him paired with me as a grown woman. I saw you there, I say. I hug him and he smirks. I found him. This is our game. Time is speeding up, only another moment before the dream catches up, or memory or brainwaves figure out that I know that my brain knows that I'm dreaming and it's time to wake up. Smile for a picture, someone says. It's your birthday. And in the moment I smiled and reached down to my non-existent belly, my first memories and future hopes and subsequent fears all coming in at the exact same moment. And I know that no picture of this moment actually exists and can't exist, and it's all about to fall apart. No, I shout, turning back to him and reaching out to shield us from the photo ending. The camera flashes and I wake off my pillow gasping. Waking up, I know I've had 5 of those back to back. There was one about being upside down in the snow, trying to find my way to the surface before I drowned as if in water. One has a boyfriend that perpetually blends with a husband on that side of sleep, and one is just a hall of mirrors of scenes of my life that are the most traumatic, that play over and over and over, shaping me daily in this pointless kind of movie loop with different choices but exactly the same outcome. It's annoying, really. It's as if to say, you know why you are the way you are, right? Of course I know. That's why I don't like to sleep. Okay, this is the one that I always end on. Just want to say quick, I did nothing to make tonight happen. Jennifer Strange and Sarah Duet did everything from a million miles away. I just cannot say how grateful I am to Centenary, everyone that Jennifer named at the beginning, Candace, your team, Sage. I know that I'm forgetting people, Jessica. Just really humbled by how much people just did this because I had this idea, and just really, really appreciate the space and all of you coming tonight. 5:45 p.m. Waiting is active. Waiting is a whole body activity. Waiting is preparing, getting ready, ready to move, to sprint. Waiting is a bending at the knees, a bowing in worship. Waiting is today. Today is waiting and being ready because I have no idea what tomorrow will bring. Tomorrow could be moving, tomorrow could be running away or toward, but running all the same. And I wonder, will I be ready? Thanks, guys.
So anyway, the question's about vulnerability. So you both have talked about, I don't really know how to frame the question anymore. You've both talked about various ways to think about vulnerability, I think, as artists. So in terms of revealing process, in terms of publishing process, right? In terms of sort of framing questions in a very public way that are that can be very personal, that can be very provocative in some cases. And then, of course, you have the problem of once you have put this thing out in the world, then somebody goes and picks up the book, or somebody goes and listens to the album, and they think, I've got her figured out. She was so vulnerable, and now I'm in the circle, and I know this person, and so there's a maybe even a danger in sort of practicing this kind of public vulnerability. So, say some things about all that. I didn't even frame a question. Should I actually ask a question? What do you think about vulnerability?
All right, I'll give you a break for talking. I don't really know another way to do it, is the thing. So, thinking in terms of kind of when I started making art, I mean, in a way that started from as far back as I can form a memory, but in terms of like intentionally practicing the craft of songwriting or this sort of more revelatory art, I think if you ask me why I was doing it, it was often because I wanted to say things to people that I couldn't say in real time. Usually that was, I'm sorry for something, if we're being honest. And so I turned to that sort of kind of crafting what I wished to express or what I wished to say, and have always, and still, although the gap is not as wide as it used to be, but I've always felt a little more skilled at crafting that and sharing it in the form of art, whether that's music or a different medium, than expressing any of that in real time, which can be a gift and can make for what I hope is art that is valuable to other people, but can be a problem in normal everyday relationships. and partly, like I said, I just don't know another way to do it. Like it's not that I want to write dance pop music and I'm just not doing it. Like you wouldn't want to hear it if I tried that. So that's kind of my initial thoughts.
Yeah, I guess I don't know how to do it well. I would desperately like to be a fiction writer, desperately. It's real bad. It's not good. I've tried it. It's super bad. I still have hopes of it. But I think, so the tricky part about this last book, the first book was very comfortable because I wrote about being 3 and 4, and not a lot of people have problems with me at 3 or 4. So it was very comfortable because there was a lot of space. I could reflect on it, make some comments on it, and that was great. Writing about me now is terrifying, and that's probably why it was accidental. I wouldn't have done that on purpose. So the tricky thing has been that people read this now, and the plus side and the amazing part is that there's been so many people that have read it, like, it gave me permission to feel a way I didn't know I had permission to feel. And that's been pretty cool. Of like, okay, great. The opposite side is, and I feel so close to you. And that sounds like a great thing. Like, oh great, you feel close to me. It's not a mirrored intimacy with people. So it creates kind of this sense of intimacy with me as a person that isn't necessarily shared because I know nothing about their lives. Like, I don't know about your most traumatic things. I don't know about those things. So I think I'm still figuring that part out because I agree that there's no other way to do it. Authenticity is really important to me. And I don't know that you get that first response of, I didn't know I had permission to feel this way without me putting myself on a page. But I also need to be able to take a piece of me with me when I go. You know, so that's a balance of like your person, as a writer and as an artist, and both are in the world, and how do you reconcile those things? So I don't have a good answer besides it's hard.
How do you reconcile those?
How do you, does anyone know?
Wisdom?
Knows that would be great.
Helpful.
Well, I think in terms of the, like, not being who you were when you wrote something or published something or released something, it's just kind of an inherent risk in this work, in this vocation. And I know that the art, the music, the writing, the books that have been most transformative for me have been that sort of gut and heart-bearing vulnerability a lot of the time. Because you have to get that deep to really offer what's common in the human experience for other people to connect to. And I'm not trying to be melodramatic in this, but like, I don't know that I would be alive without some of that art in the world. And it just so happened that I had some giftings and some education early in my life that made me like able to make these things too. And it's kind of gratitude is a big motivator in that, and it's just an inherent risk that I don't believe what I believed 10 years ago, and so I'm either playing those songs and reframing them, or some of them are not healthy to play anymore and they're off the list, you know. I've heard some artists talk about that as kind of your personal liturgy. You may not believe it anymore or agree with it, but maybe you wish to, or maybe you're honoring the memory, or just kind of have to figure out how to frame it in your mind.
Yeah, because it's at least, I suppose, an exercise in remembering the person that was. I mean, so, can you talk, both of you, a little bit about process then? I mean, here we are back at the big college, where, I mean, I remember you two as students as, it seemed to me that you were more comfortable as students with the process of making a thing than I remembered being comfortable with the process of making a thing when I was an undergrad. I don't know, maybe I just observed that in you, but it seemed like you were. I would imagine that you're much more comfortable with that now. I mean, even with the ability to talk about how, you know, I made things 10 years ago that I don't want to share anymore, right? And then you make these things on your phone and share them with the world, right? And that's a big risk too. So, and that, I mean, that's very much revealing, I mean, making a product out of the process itself, right? When maybe the question could be, why didn't you take some of those things and craft something different out of it? So what does that process look like, and how comfortable do you think you really are with sort of sitting in process like that?
So I think more and more I process over product. A lot of people say that, but this is the thing. I'm really comfortable. I thought I was really comfortable with process in the first, and writing and learning how to write an essay. And I really like editing. I like getting something finished and putting that in the world. I think your question to why publish this instead of why not use these notes and make something edited? It's a little more neat and tidy. I think the revelation of this book, so for those of you who don't know the background, on a plane back to Louisiana from Baltimore, about 4 years into my transition there, and I needed to clear the space in my phone because I was out of space because I didn't have a big enough plan. Now I do. And I found 500 notes on my phone. And it was one of those moments where you make sure someone is not looking over your shoulder because you're a little embarrassed about what you just found. And so I told a friend about it. They said, don't get rid of it, even though I wanted to burn it. And here we are. So the reason not to publish it, not to use it in a more neat and tidy edited way and never let anyone see this, is because it showed me the person I was in a way that I wasn't familiar with. And I don't mean that to sound dramatic. I just mean that the collection is more than the sum of its parts. So any one of those, there's nothing groundbreaking in any one part of the page. But as a process over 5 years and as a collection, it was a time capsule of this person that I had grown into and this arc that I didn't realize I was writing. Mm-hmm. And that I think would have gotten lost with too much editing, which is my typical Michelle thing, right? Edit it, clean it up.
And out the arc and just go on.
Right, right.
Just
totally, just give a neat and tidy painting. So that experience, seeing it that way and seeing it unedited and seeing something that's very different than I would have created, very more vulnerable than I ever would have been, has now kind of shifted my view of a lot of things. So now even more so, I've just kind of been, okay, let's see where this goes with process. I'm a lot more comfortable with the process, if that makes sense. But I wouldn't have been necessarily.
Also, Jessica has
Michelle?
No, go for it.
Okay, so since we're talking about process, for both Sarah and Michelle, the art that you make is using a lot of the same materials and tools and approaches that you use in your job for the school, for the church, for clients. And so I'm curious about the relationship between the work that you do maybe for clients or for your employer versus the art that you make. Like, is that a similar process? Are they different processes? I'd be really curious to kind of hear about how you guys see those and their relationship to each other.
That's a great question. Gold star. There's definitely a distinction. It's definitely a different energy, even if the process could appear similar if someone had the ability to observe what was happening in my brain. I think we'll speak a little more directly to like the value of our centenary education and our comm degrees in particular, but one of the things that has been valuable for me is the experience that I had to explore a lot of different mediums. So I'm able to work in a lot of different mediums, so that's graphic design, music, painting, video editing, and that sounds impressive, but I'm really not great at any one of those things. It's just like being average in all of these different things, but that make work possible that's valuable in a professional setting. So I think more of my work at the church or for freelance clients or things as kind of a more technical thing. That's not my personal outlet that is contributing a whole lot, I mean somewhat, but not a whole lot to my health as a person. I have to do this stuff. I have to do the personal work to really process life actively, and kind of, it's almost like a purifying, clarifying, cathartic, sometimes healing, but that's important work for me to do, to be or become a whole and healthy person. And I suppose, and not that my daily work at a real job is not part of that, but it's a little bit different energy and definitely different goals, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm so tempted to be like, ditto. I'm not a musician. I desperately have dreams of it in my second life. I would equate my work, what I do at the university, not so much teaching. Teaching is its own beast. More like what I understand musicians have to play scales or practice, right? So like that's kind of my technical practicing these skills, practicing editing, practicing writing, practicing design. Whereas the art, don't tell my boss that though. The art, I think,
This audio is going to be real fun.
Oh no, podcast. Whereas the stuff that I do here in writing, like my job funds both mentally skills and paycheck to do the art that I think I'm like made to make. Yes. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Made to Make is a working title of the project. I'm working on it, she knows. But yeah, it's like an investment, like the daily, more professional work right now is an investment to build the platform on which we can do this more vocational work, I think, for each of us. I'll speak to whatever you want on personal process, but I'm more interested in asking you a question about the notes process of this book. So in putting back on my communication new media hat and prepping for tonight, I noted that this book would not have been possible when we were students still, and that wasn't that long ago. We came in 10 years ago, graduated 6 years ago or whatever, but iPhones were created, yes, while we were in college, but I didn't have one yet, and they definitely weren't the norm, and not everybody everywhere knew what the Notes app was. We definitely weren't using it as an integral part of our daily lives and work. And so one, I don't even think it would have been possible, and two, the fact that it's possible and you went from raw, mundane elements of life from your brain into your phone, onto paper, and then designed it
back to paper. I'm not suddenly noticing how
Right.
hard this is.
Well, back to paper, but if you haven't seen the book yet, at least come and look at the layout, because it's paper designed like the phone screen. There's a slide to lock page or slide to unlock page, and it's all designed as you would see it in a Notes app. So I just find that fascinating from a transmedia perspective, and love that it shows how artful just mundane daily details or stream of conscious thoughts can be or become. I don't think I asked you a question. I mean, thank you. Yeah, I don't know that I have a question. I just find that really fascinating.
Yeah. I can't, so I do have to they're not here, so they wouldn't know, but the designer in Mason Jar Press is an independent publisher in Baltimore. We actually went to school together in Baltimore, did all the design. And it's funny, the technology, books are forever, so is technology, I suppose. The technology, the slide to unlock, we got the boxes in, and 2 days later, Apple did an update, and that was removed. Come on! So it's just a funny, because it's paper mimicking
That
technology.
part is already
Yeah. So it's a
absolutely
moment.
old.
Yeah,
It
because
could
they're
have
having a
happened.
moment in slice of life.
Yeah, 5 years from now, maybe we won't be able to have paper. I started thinking of the musical equivalent too, like when you first started talking about it, which would be the voice memos app, which is very much an integral part of my songwriting process, but nothing that I would want any of you to hear. So I commend you for your bravery.
Do you all have any other questions? Yes, sir?
Sure, I'll take a shot. So I'm curious about, you talked a bit about why you make the art, sort of what processing and living life and looking at yourself right from your perspective. I'm wondering about why you would then share it, right? Why would you take that next step? And then how does that affect the processing, living life, how you see yourself in it, right? It seems like you might leave that for now.
Did you guys all hear the question? Like, we made it, great, but then why share it with the world? I ask myself this question often. So here's, I'll just give you my very honest, this is the reason I published it. So I actually went back and forth with the publisher. I gave them an out because it was like, it was people I knew before they ever got the book, and I think that, I thought they liked the concept. And I was really afraid that when I gave them the manuscript, they were going to be like, ooh, we've signed a contract. On a personal level, more so than I ever expected, again, because I wasn't writing on purpose, there was a lot more about God and faith than I realized and that I was comfortable sharing. And especially with these friends who do not share the same beliefs I do. So there was a moment where we met in a bar to look over the final edits, because that's what you do when you're a writer. If you're thinking about writing, you meet in bars a lot. Sorry, Mom, don't worry about it, it's fine. So anyway, we meet and I was like, look, let's just elephant in the room. You guys don't have to do this. Like, it's okay. And he was like, no. There's a lot of God in it. And I was like, I know. And he was like, no, it's fine. Like, honestly, I didn't know that you could talk about God that way. And it was just a very honest, simple conversation that it wasn't about faith, it wasn't about religion, but having someone who could not be more different from me, think completely different than me, not endorsing my beliefs in any way or even my angst, was like, no, it's good. Like, we're going to do this, and I'm going to stand behind it. Having someone who got crap for it in some circles for publishing this thing told me it mattered. And I didn't know why it mattered, but it told me that it mattered. And so on the days when someone quotes it back to me when I'm having a bad day, and they're like, oh, you know what page 73 says? I'm like, I do, because I wrote it. Stop quoting it to me. I think about that, it mattered. And that I think is outside of me. I had a student, I was teaching at UL yesterday, or what day is it? A couple days, I don't know. At some point I was teaching at UL this week. And a student raised his hand and he was like, so everyone does this. Everyone has notes in their phones. Why is yours published? And I was like, that's a really good question. I don't necessarily have an answer for you. I don't have a good answer for you besides it was a moment in time. I was at the right place at the right time. But everyone does do this. It was a unifying thing, not that it's special, but that everyone does this, and everyone kind of sees themselves in the very specific, even though it's my specific story. Yeah, that's my answer.
Maybe because you were brave enough to put it out there. That's kind of how when people look at.
But that's the question, right? I mean, is it brave or is it dumb?
Or how does it change the way you see yourself, right? With that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, people hear things or read things that you don't realize are in there. And as soon as you do share something, and I will answer the why, but as soon as you do share something, it's not only yours anymore. It's as much yours as it is mine, and your perspective or reading of it is as valid as mine is. And the songs that stick over time, I learned to see in new ways, and then reflect back on me in new ways, which is all just kind of fascinating. I'm using that word a lot, apparently. I'm very just fascinated by all of this. But I mean, the why I share it goes back to that gratitude that I was talking about, in that I know that this is I know that this kind of work matters because it's mattered so deeply and gravely in my life. And so that's part of it. And part of it is a little bit I mean, there has to be a personal payoff to some degree. Like, we're human animals that, like, operate in that way. But I know it can be valuable because it can connect with you in ways that I hope are life-giving or affirming. And also, if I share it, now there's risk in this, but if I share it and you say me too, or thank you, like, that affirms me and my humanity. And I need that. Like, I don't function well without that. And this is a way that I've figured out how to foster that sort of connection in a way that's not only valuable for me, hopefully. And so that's kind of an existential affirmation.
But it's part of the creative loop, though, right?
Right.
As well. So making art is not merely therapy, right?
No.
So there's something about finishing the thing, even if it's a different sense of crafting, right? There's something about finishing the thing and sharing the thing, and then it lives outside of you, and then there's this reflexive change.
And I think there's a responsibility in that too. This is actually a preacher that I admire a whole lot, but who was a stand-up comedian before she ever went down that road. But she talks about, like, never speak or teach or write, because she's an author too, from a wound. Like, you only make your art from scars. So, like, if it's an open wound and I'm singing and I need your affirmation to be okay, then, like, that's a violation of the exchange. Like, I work through stuff with friends and family and counselors and all that in the process, and I share it when I'm not dependent upon your response. If I'm going to be just totally right, like, and that's not responsible, like, vocational art making, I don't think. So there is a lot. Like, I'm not going to share something until, like, it's vulnerable, but it's not so vulnerable that I'm going to go in a really bad place, go home in a bad place, and you didn't like what I shared.
Anything else? Working on the meantime. You said you would say something about your comm major and the liberal arts education you received.
Okay, so I was professional writing, which when I was here, I assume it's the same, but maybe it's not. We had to take different tracks, right? So we took graphic design. You could take radio. I think I did the film class.
You did, and I didn't take it because it was so hard for you.
And rewarding. So I will say, like, I talk to my students about that a lot. So the reason I went to University of Baltimore's program for creative writing is because it's creative writing and publishing arts. So it kind of continued that idea of I'm not just going to be a really good writer, but I need to understand, to be a good writer, I need to kind of understand these other mediums, especially the way technology in the world is going. So I applied to Centenary for that, just on a side note, really a lot more prepared than a lot of other people, both in the workforce and in my class. The thing I would say too is that, do I have any aspiring writers? Yeah, all right, yeah, okay. So, best advice I've gotten in every single writing class I've ever taken in my entire life is, it's great you want to be a writer. Do it. You can also just put artist, I would say. Have another job. Some people do not like that advice because it's like, oh, that's not very romantic. It's not, but you get to eat, and that's important. But, like, really, I know this doesn't sound glamorous, but I will say, like, that is actually really important. We were just talking about, like, our day jobs help us facilitate these things. I learned so much here with skills that I am able to be the director of alumni relations for a law school. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. But like, I learned being able to ask questions, being able to critically think here in a way that you may take for granted because you're doing it in all your classes. It is not a thing that's done everywhere. Like being able to problem solve. And I think as just in the communications major, as having to do a film class that broke my brain, I can edit things at work because I took this film class, 8 years ago now. So I know none of that's poetic, but just really grateful for the things we had to do here that seemed really hard, but have just made my life so much easier and have presented me with so many opportunities to do a book, a website, all of these different things for.
And to get a paycheck.
And to get a paycheck. That's a big deal, y'all. I'm just saying.
You can eat and drink if you could.
Right? Sign contracts and bars.
So, okay, yes, to all of that, I co-sign. And all of that is pretty retrospective because we had conversations. We didn't say this yet, but we weren't only like in the same class. We were roommates, so that's where some of this context comes. There's a lot of shared history. But we had conversations shortly after graduating and starting some of our first jobs where we would call each other and be like, why do they let us do these things? Like, we're not qualified for anything. I don't know how to do anything. Does no one else know how to, like, our teachers, our doctors, like, who, like, is everybody this clueless? Because that's terrifying. These were real conversations. And I reflected on some of this now with Jessica in prepping for this event, because what we did realize eventually, and I see the value in this more and more all the time, whereas I didn't get a trade certificate or a certification in Photoshop or in design. I actually got out of, I shouldn't say that, I got out of my comm major without ever using InDesign.
That breaks my heart.
Which, I mean, it really came back to bite me. It's terrible, but I did accomplish that. I also never stepped foot in the math building, which was one of my goals that I achieved. But anyway, vulnerability, right? I mean, I took a class just like her, but what we got was this kind of diverse platform on which to build our career, our work, our vocation. And we had the skills and the tools to learn how to learn and to learn on the job. And that's been incredibly valuable. And in turn, have realized, yeah, maybe we actually are more qualified than someone who didn't have this education, maybe. So it is really valuable, but like just forewarning, it can feel really disorienting at first. And like to your point of like that kind of diverse skill set and the space to explore and learn different crafts while I was here is what I hope will make possible transitioning out of this day job into this kind of thing being the job, because I don't only write the songs and perform them, but because I have the comm training, I don't have to hire a graphic designer to do my album art, and I don't have to hire a video editor to do promo videos and copywriting and all of these things. And when I have money, I have to do that, because there are people that can do those things better than I can, but I can do the basics in a way that makes a creative career more realistic, because you have to kind of do all of it these days. Like, more people have the opportunity. The gatekeeping systems are kind of deteriorating in music and in book publishing, just maybe a few years behind the music industry, but it's great for people who are ready to work and able to work and want to make a good middle class living in a creative career.
I have one more thing that I forgot. It's funny also that you asked this question, because I'm remembering, now that I'm thinking about it too, senior sim was this is the year that we lived together, and senior seminar for communications majors was very intense. I hope it is still very intense. But I think the biggest thing that now that I'm thinking about Centenary in every class that I had, was not just how, but why. And there was a very important question that we had to answer because in senior sim we had to decide grad school, workforce, something else. And you had to have a one-on-one conversation about why. And it was I just remember that being a very important conversation in the start of my career and in my life of like, why are you going to go to grad school for writing? Because for me, was it Dr. Van Carey? Yeah, so that's who we had. He was like, you're very young. You could get some life experience and then actually have something to write about. And that's a real concern. Like that's a real concern why I go to grad school right after. And talking with him, discovered writing for me was developing my voice and developing and figuring out who I was and figuring out who I am. And yes, I would have had more experience to write about things, but I talked to someone this week about this I don't know that I would have liked who I was, like without developing who I am. And I like who I am. I developed I think I'm a cool person just in general. That sounds like, that's adorable, but like, for real, it's like, you should like yourself. In a way that writing gave me that and gave me that voice. And I don't know that that would have happened had I not gone into a very intensive program. And so we kind of talked about that, and it was a really important conversation that I took for granted happens at every university across America. I work at another university. It does not happen. Like, that doesn't happen for all students. That doesn't happen in the classroom. That doesn't happen in your elective classes. I took so many different classes here and had those conversations with a lot of professors here. We're doing this with you. Like, we have a group text, just saying. It's kind of fun, right? So we have a group text. Like, that doesn't happen in other universities. Like, just this, that we're here now, is a huge testament to, like, why and how and why Centenary is fantastic.
I'll say one last thing. I don't know what year all of you students are, and I would probably say a slightly different thing to each class. But while Centenary is wonderful and utterly invaluable in all the ways that we have said it is also, or it can be excruciatingly difficult. And it's important to, even if you're not going to share what you write in your phone or play on your instrument or whatever is an expressive outlet for you, even if you don't think of yourself as creative, you are. Like, human beings make things, it's what we do. And it's healthy to get what's inside of you out. And you don't feel like you have time to do that. I know that. But you have to make time. And there can be real consequences if you don't. Like, you have to make time for what's healthy for you. And that was something that took us years to figure out. And that last year was kind of when it clicked. And when we did live together, we had a whole room in the apartment that we called the art room. And it was just there for when we could make use of it. And it was a mess all the time. And it had supplies and anything that was just kind of there and open for when we could take that time. It's going to take you years after you graduate to realize that it's okay if you don't have every hour of the day scheduled for 14 hours. In fact, it's probably healthier if you don't. So any chance I get to say that to students, like, ease yourself into that. Like, you will graduate, it's okay, you have a support system, use it, just be healthy. And if you don't know how to, ask somebody. There are people that care about you here.
You also should buy a book. Easy segue there. So there's books. You should buy 1 or 2 or 8.
And bookmarks that are free.
Bookmarks, thank you. You don't even have to buy those. You can walk by, pick up 1 or 2 or 8. Thank you very much for coming and being here, and hang around, eat. I don't know if there's more coffee, but I'm clearly plugging the coffee, so you can have more coffee, and
Yeah,